on. Are you joking? Ain't no way. Are you kidding me? Dude, no. Dude, if you are a Republican and you voted for this man, you are so stupid. Oh my God. Today is Liberation Day. Ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, and NBs, we are live, we are alive, and we are liberated. We are liberated from the money in our wallets. We are liberated from the retirement funds. It's so much better if you don't have a financial future. It's so much better. Don't you feel liberated? Have you said thank you once? That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's Liberation Day. You already know what's popping. You already know what's happening. We are liberating ourselves from potentially the trials and tribulations of existing in an environment where you have money in your pocket. 401, not okay. If only you said thank you more times. If you had said thank you more than once or twice, famously, this wouldn't be the case it is. You just hadn't said thank you enough times. Ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, and MBs, we are live. We are alive. And I hope everyone's having a fantastic Liberation Day. It is 2 days out from April Fool's, but it feels like everything is a joke. 2 days out from April Fool's, and yet it feels like we are the fools. It is a joke. We are the punchline. We are cooked. So is the market. But what are you going to do about it? There's not really much you can do about it at all. There's not anything you can say or do about it. There's things just kind of happen, and you just sit there and you take it, right? 401k should be renamed to a 201k. Luckily for me, I have no way of even knowing. Like, I genuinely don't even know how to look at my finances. So for that reason, I have no idea how badly my 401k is doing. I don't know. I literally don't know. I have yet to talk to my financial advisors about this situation because I don't want to know. It's fine. What are we going to do? You know what I mean? What are we going to do? We ball, baby. That's how it is. You know, what are you going to do? Are you just not going to buy What are you going to do? You're not going to... Oh, yeah. Okay, things are more expensive. Well, what are you supposed to do? Not buy things? All right, well, good luck. You know? So, yeah, go to Vegas and put it all on put it all on blast, more like. Anyway, instead of a Roth IRA, people should invest in the real IRA. Yeah. I never pay attention to gas prices. Exactly. That's how it is. Well, one, for me, I don't pay attention because I have an EV, which, but also, you know, even when I had a gas car, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? Not drive? Good luck. Speaking of gas car, Madagascar, we're going to talk about all of that. Oh my God, there's so much happening in the world. Let's start off with Donald Trump. Yesterday was Liberation Day. Libertad. Donald Trump finally came out and said, hey, enough is enough. America, after being at the forefront of developing a complex network of supply chains that simply benefit the American consumers in a way that completely eviscerated the American working class, in a way that only benefits American capital owners, so that they can constantly chase profits overseas by manufacturing goods and products and commodities overseas and completely gutting the American middle class and the American working class, leaving them in destitute circumstances. Donald Trump said, enough is enough. We ate good with global trade, with free trade for quite a long time, and we want to eat even better somehow. But because I have no solutions, I've decided I'm going to put tariffs on every country on the planet, with notable exceptions: North Korea, Russia, and, well, Iran got 10%, I believe. But North Korea and Russia, I believe, are two countries that didn't get it. But also, we don't really do any trade with them, so I don't think that's all that impactful. But Donald Trump, Big T, the T-Dog, the T-Man, he said, tariffs galore. It's the most beautiful word in the language. It's the most beautiful word for the most beautiful world and the most beautiful girl. Tariffs. That's right. Let's take a look at the tariffs that were placed upon Penguin Island and McDonald's Island. places where we have a tremendous trade deficit with. Now, why am I talking about trade deficits? I'll get to that. I'm spoiling it. Let's talk about this first.
With President Trump's new tariffs, take a look at this map. It shows the countries targeted by the president's trade war. Markets around the world are responding this morning. Our own market here is facing much, much lower.
Yeah, and there is serious concern about the potential shockwave through the global economy and to American consumers' bottom line. We'll be breaking down a potential impact, but first, let's go to our senior political correspondent, Rachel Scott, at the White House. Good morning, Rachel.
Also, I forgot.
Michael, good morning to you. These tariffs are sweeping and the impact will be widespread. A move that will not only reshape the U.S. economy, but could also shatter relationships with our closest allies as businesses and companies prepare to raise prices on everything from clothing to groceries.
I can't tell. Is this good? Don't forget Mauritius. What do we even buy from them? What about Cambodia? What are we doing? Every country got slapped with a tariff so bad that countries that got 10%, like Turkey, were like, okay, he likes us. Donald Trump is behaving like an abusive husband, okay? Donald Trump is behaving like an abusive father, beating the shit out of everybody, okay? And the ones that only get the backhand one time are going, oh, he must like us a lot. That's the situation in front of us right now. That's what's going on.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day.
This morning, President Trump dramatically escalating his global trade war, announcing his most sweeping set of tariffs yet on goods from every country that trades with the United States.
This will be indeed the golden age of America. It's coming back.
The president declaring a national emergency and putting into place what economists are calling the highest tariff since the early 1900s. Starting this morning, a 25% tariff is now in effect on all foreign cars. That could raise the price of new vehicles by more than $6,000. Then on Saturday, a 10% tariff on nearly all foreign imports. Roughly 60 countries, including some of America's closest trading partners, will face even steeper tariffs. A 20% tariff on products from the European Union, and an even higher 34% tariff on products from China. The president saying it's all in response to what other countries are imposing on the U.S.
If you want your tariff rate to be zero, then you build your product right here in America, because there is no tariff if you build your plant, your product in America.
But experts warn those tariffs will only lead to higher prices on everything from groceries to clothing, iPhones to cars. Some analysts say in a worst-case scenario, it will cost close to $1,800 for every American, $7,200 for a family of four.
They're going to touch everything from going to the grocery store to going out to restaurants to even having to go to places like the movie theater.
Patrick Cumrow owns an...
I'm being so for real when I say this. The entire thing that holds American society right now together is treats and the affordability of treats and basic goods, okay? When that goes away, Americans, I think, which are otherwise incredibly servile and also brain rotted with peasant mindset, will actually riot, okay? I think Americans will riot like the French did. If their treats are that expensive, if their food is that expensive, and then paired up with like obvious layoffs that come through, recession, or the Great Depression, the greatest depression of all. Cheap commodity consumption is the real riot tax in this country beyond the marginal benefits that you can potentially claw through the welfare structure. I'm telling you, this is huge. But it's also a complicated situation because as someone who is not a free trade advocate, okay, I'm in this unique mindset where I have to clarify some positions as I did yesterday, and I will talk about that as well. But of course, the MAGA cultists have basically started doing this. They've started. You do not need the new iPad. You do not need the new cell phone. You do not need the new video game console. You want them. There's a big difference. And if you look at the people whining about the tariffs, I challenge you to ask them how their lives have been affected in any way. This right here would lead to someone getting assassinated if it was like a leftist saying this under Joe Brandon. And some did. Some did say this. You know what happened to them? Joe Brandon lost. Kamala Harris lost. This is psychotic. They went with what's his face? The Vibe Session guy mindset so fast. Like the tariffs haven't even hit yet, and this motherfucker is already defending the price increases. Amazing. I love that. I love that so much. It is hilarious. Okay, this has real first Trump era COVID is about to hit vibes. Okay, this moment right here is a very unique one. Donald Trump yesterday said this is a historical moment. I agree. It kind of feels like we are at the precipice of something very interesting. It kind of feels exactly the same way that I felt right around when people started taking COVID a little bit more seriously, when we were like, wait a minute, a lot of people are kind of dying. What's going on here? What is this? Is this an issue? That's what it feels like. Like it feels like we're at the precipice. Okay. Now, who knows what will happen? Well, I have some ideas. I have some opinions, and I will get to that. But the short and sweet of it all, free trade is ass. Free trade is horrible for the domestic manufacturing output, the labor in this country, and it's also predicated upon the consistent domination of the global South in an effort to have much cheaper slave labor elsewhere. Without that, maybe you could actually arrive at a theoretical free trade through currency exchange rates and things of that nature. But without imperialism, maybe you could have some semblance of free trade. Understandable, because then if everyone's material conditions are elevated to a degree where there's a price parity and there's a parity and an equilibrium, a benefits parity, if you want to call it that, then obviously there could be some semblance of free trade. But with imperialism, there is no real free trade. Free trade is, of course, a mechanism to displace the domestic labor and outsource it. And it was done by American business owners, people like Donald Trump. Make no mistake. When Donald Trump says these other countries are us over, not anymore, he's lying to you. He's trying to hit a nationalist angle here, but it's the American business owners that wrote the book. It's American capital that wrote the book. It's American capital that gladly shipped those jobs overseas. Make no mistake. When Donald Trump says, oh, it's China, they're up, he's lying. He is lying. It's ridiculous. Global trade is a necessity in this day and age. Okay? I don't have an issue with that. I'm not a trade isolationist across the board. I am not a firm and committed believer in Marxist-Leninist Judaist ideology. Having said that, what Donald Trump did yesterday, he said it was past presidents and our government, you idiot. No, you are the idiot, because you don't understand. It is not our past presidents and our government. It is American capital owners that betrayed the American working class. Shut the fuck up and listen to the adult in the room who's explaining to you, because guess what? All of those free trade agreements would be meaningless if American capital owners were like, yeah, no, I'm not going to actually move manufacturing to become more competitive in the global marketplace, move manufacturing overseas, offshore labor like that. Through the government and trade negotiations, ain't nobody made your father's boss move the factory to China at gunpoint, okay? They did that voluntarily. They wanted that to happen. That's why they wrote the rules. You are wrong. You're wrong. I'm shaking you. I'm shaking you like a baby until you are no longer wrong. And as is the case with American antitrust, as is the case with everything in the United States of America, it yielded tremendous profits for corporations, for the super wealthy, a mass consolidation of wealth and power at the tippy top. Having said that, it also came with cheap consumable items, cheap commodities. So consumers were servile. Consumers were made to not realize how devastating this was for their future, for the future of the economy. That's it. But make no mistake, it was entirely done by wealthy businessmen. They wanted it and they got it. So for Donald Trump to say this is previous administrations, this is China, you're wrong. It's the very same super wealthy people right now that are still in power and have become even more powerful in the consequence of this. Those were the villains that conducted this operation. And the American government led this process of global domination, led this process of international markets favoring the American consumer base in the short term, while directly displacing the labor force, which would have genuine material harm, genuine consequences for the American economy in the long term. And we are now living in the ashes of that. That's why I talked about the difference between looking at Chongqing 30 years ago in China versus now on a trajectory of growth and prosperity versus a place like Gary, Indiana, or Detroit, which is on a downward trajectory. Oh boy, why did he get banned? I don't know. He might have just gotten, no, he just got timed out by Toxic SJW, who didn't want to hear this person. But I untimed them out. Anyway, I need you all to understand cheap televisions and cheap consumer goods gave Americans the feeling of wealth. And because of endless domination overseas, specifically on the global south, unequal exchange of the global south, Americans, comparative to the living standards of the global south that were being dominated, were better off for sure. They're better off. Having said that, however, wealth is still relative domestically. You match it against those, you match those who have not against those who do have it, right? And in that process, I think wealth disparity grew tremendously in this country. And now we are in this predicament. And the only way out of this predicament, ironically enough, is to be China, is to Efendim Baba, is to do China, is to literally have industrial trade policy, nationalization of key sectors, boosting manufacturing, a federal jobs guarantee, a federal jobs program. That's how you're supposed to get out of this. With central planning. You're secretly excited about this all, don't lie. No, I think that, I mean, this is a situation where I think Americans will break away from, this is a situation where I think Americans will break away from Donald Trump, regardless of what these freakish, cultish losers are saying, because you can't make someone, through the cult mentality, you can't make someone believe that they have more money in their pocket. If they feel it, they feel it. Oh, dude, China like removed term limits for their premier like what Xi Jinping did? Yeah, ironically enough, that question you're presenting is exactly what we are doing. We're doing the bad parts of Chinese governance and not the good parts of Chinese governance. America already had a surveillance state. It is accelerating. America, at the very least, cared about like a theoretical free speech. It's eroded. We're moving in the Chinese direction in all the worst ways, in all the wrong ways, and not moving in the Chinese direction in all the best ways, in the right ways. Even development, rapid urbanization, massive infrastructure projects, massive infrastructure expenditures. This is the problem. That is the issue. Because people ask, like, what's next? How do we get out of this? How do we get out of this rut? And the reality of the matter is you only get out of this rut with serious government investment. That's the only way to get out of this. You cannot rely on the capital owners that put you in this place, put you in this problem to begin with. You cannot rely on the magnanimous nature of capital owners. You cannot bully them through tariffs to boost manufacturing domestically. That process will take far too long. You still have to have serious control over that transition. And Donald Trump seemingly is not interested in doing that at all. This is a problem. This is an issue. And I don't think people understand it. The reason why I bring up all this stuff is because I am not anti-tariff. I've never been anti-tariff. I've never been anti-trade protectionism. However, what Donald Trump is doing is not trade protectionism at all. And that is very important. That's important to understand. That's important to address. And we must address it, especially at a time when there's a lot of confusion because you got Sean Fain, who I love, who I admire, who I think is brilliant, revolutionary, and very very critical of the Trump administration, coming out and saying some of these tariffs are good. And I want to cover that.
Hair shop in Glendale, Wisconsin.
Will you have to raise prices for your customers?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
By how much?
I guess the minimum is going to be 25% on all parts.
He worries his business will suffer.
What we see is it kind of freezes.
Why are you not anti-tariffs? No. Make no mistake. I'm anti everything that Trump did yesterday. I am completely against it. And I will tell you why I'm against it. I'm saying I'm not against tariffs on principle. Like, I'm against free trade on principle, especially because as it stands currently, free trade is not actually free. It's not being done. It's not being conducted amongst equal parties. Free trade is conducted with the global South. It's called free trade. It's not so free. It hurts the domestic manufacturers, and it hurts the domestic labor force. It only helps capital owners seek out higher profit margins, basically, by offshoring to countries that we have dominated, that are going to have a cheap industrial base, an industrial labor force as opposed to ours. It is a mechanism of extracting wealth once again.
Money freezes the willingness for customers to spend because they don't really know the future.
And in North Carolina, a state already hit hard from Hurricane Helene, some business owners say they have no choice but to raise their prices.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we will have to raise prices.
The president is confident the tariffs will bring jobs and manufacturing to the United States. Some auto workers applauding the move, but acknowledging that could take time.
I don't think it's going to be that long, but we have to be patient and let it happen.
The administration sending a warning to other countries not to retaliate.
This is not a negotiation, it's a national emergency.
Markets around the world tumbled with our allies denouncing the move, some even vowing countermeasures. Democrats quick to point out the president's campaign promise to lower prices for American families, but the president betting big here that this will bring manufacturing jobs.
You know what's funny about all this? If I'm a European leader right now, I'm pissed, because this entire global trade structure was directly designed by American businessmen and European businessmen as well, but specifically dominated by American businessmen. We built this complex web. We took advantage of this complex web for decades. And now Donald Trump's like, nah, I'm done. I want more in return from you. And the reasons why he's doing this are there's the suggestions that he's making, like what he claims he's doing this for, and what I know is the real reason why he's doing this. Now, I'll be very honest with you. It's clear. This is to try and decouple the West, specifically the United States of America, from China as the manufacturing hub of the planet. That's it. Okay? This is seen as a matter of national security. This is a national security concern from the perspective of the anti-China hawks in the American government. They understand that if China were to not be so restrained in the future one day, and all of a sudden stop the flow of treats to the United States of America, especially as China has implemented initiatives to create secondary markets for themselves, specifically in Africa, developing Africa, and using that as a market to sell to. Like, these are all the Belt and Road Initiative. These are all important steps that the Chinese government has taken because of its grand design for global trade. In that process of China decided, yeah, you know what, we're just not, you're over. Okay, no more goods for you. It would collapse the United States of America. It would just collapse it. It would collapse the entire West. And I think that Donald Trump and his advisors recognize that fear and are actively trying to work against it. They're actively trying to bring back manufacturing and claw back some of that capability by force. The problem is they have no vision. They have no conviction. They're squishy, and they're backed by capital. So how do you do that when you try to do that through the neoliberal private-public partnership that you only implement. You can't do it. You can't bring back manufacturing this way. The most you'll do is the CHIPS Act. Ironically enough, what Biden was doing was the extent of what you can do if your vision is stuck within the neoliberal framework. And without that, without even the CHIPS Act, for example, without actual investments into American manufacturing, there is no world where you can just simply rely on companies going, yeah, let's build our factories here in the United States of America. And this is a dangerous prospect for numerous reasons, because it will backfire for a couple different reasons. The lack of vision, the lack of Chinese vision, Chinese style central planning vision within the American government will inevitably lead to massive failures. Why? Because without central planning in this process, you're simply relying on foreign investment coming back into the United States of America because they're too fearful of the tariffs or whatever, which is already on shaky ground to begin with. That's number one. Number two, when tariffs kick in, and let's say you do start building factories, you build the domestic manufacturing, you build your output. There is no guarantee that other countries will be purchasing. The trade deficit is what Donald Trump wants to fix. But there's no guarantee that the other countries are going to start purchasing these commodities from the United States of America once it's made in the United States of America. That's number one. Number two, you build the manufacturing, okay? You shut off trade internationally. You shut off trade from China that way because now you have an alternative. You have the domestic production, okay? Great. Fantastic. You have the domestic production. No one is going to pay tariffs because no one is going to be purchasing foreign goods. So all of a sudden, the tariff faucet is closed. So it doesn't necessarily make sense on that front either. And more importantly, even in the short term, tariffs will, of course, lead to inflation. What is inflation? It is just a collection of commodities that you track. That's and the prices of said commodities increasing. That's what inflation is. Why? Why will this lead to inflation? Because all of a sudden, every good, what a tariff is, for those of you who don't know, is an entry fee that usually an American importer is paying. Okay? It is not paid by the other country. It's paid by the person who is bringing the good into the United States of America. It's an entry fee that you're paying the American government. So it's a tax that they're paying. But that tax carries over to you, the consumer. How does it carry over to you, the consumer? Because you pay the entrance, you pay the entrance fee for the good that you're shipping into the United States of America, and then that automatically increases the price of the thing that you're selling because they have to keep their profit margins the same. God forbid they eat away at their profits. They're never going to do that. So all of a sudden, the price of the good is higher. Okay, so this is the reason why tariffs, especially universal tariffs such as this one, when applied, turn into a regressive tax, a sales tax, a flat tax. What is a regressive tax? A regressive tax is a tax that harms the working poor a lot more than it harms the wealthy. Because what are you going to do? Not purchase gas? What are you going to do? Not purchase commodities? Not purchase food? No, you can't do that. It's going to break your bank a lot more than it breaks the banks of a wealthy person, a lot more than it hurts the wallet of a wealthy person. It is a regressive tax. It's a sales tax. But because Americans hate the word tax, Donald Trump has been able to expertly apply a sales tax across the board without ever mentioning the word sales tax and how it will increase his taxes on the working poor. That's it. So we're all going to get raises, right? No, you're not going to get a raise. You're probably going to lose your job, as a matter of fact, because as purchasing power diminishes because of inflation, companies will no longer be able to continue growing and be able to hire people, and inevitably will fire people. Layoffs will happen, which will accelerate the lack of purchasing power in the country. It will cripple the economy, and you will go into a depression. A great one! A Great Depression! And this has happened in the American past, in the not-so-distant American past, as a matter of fact. So on the one hand, I wanted to make sure that you understand that I am not necessarily anti-tariff. I am not necessarily anti-trade protectionism. I think trade protectionism can be good, especially when there is a domestic competitive industrial force that already exists in the country. so they can quickly accelerate production. For car manufacturers, for example, this very much exists. For the UAW, for the American car manufacturers, this is seen as beneficial. However, the issue here is, as it has happened in the past when Donald Trump did tariffs before on other goods last time around, and as tariffs have been implemented in the past, domestic manufacturers will also increase prices. So unless, and this is the last part of the problem that I was explaining earlier, unless there is price caps for American domestic manufacturers coming from a competent administrative state that actually wants to boost domestic manufacturing without making the American consumers incur that cost, they have to do price controls. But they will never do that. This is precisely why historically, whenever tariffs happen, American manufacturers also increase their prices, as they did during COVID, regardless of supply and demand. This can only be done because of the tremendous amount of corporate consolidation that took place. Greedflation would not exist if there was at least a regulatory apparatus that stopped companies from behaving in these ways where they're like, well, you have more purchasing power, I'm just going to increase my prices. And it seems like, you'll yell, but not at me. You'll yell at the government. Great. Okay. My profit margins will go higher and higher year over year. It's fantastic. Do you understand the problem here? Do you understand why this will absolutely increase prices? Because not only does this immediately increase prices for all goods that you purchase that are being imported into this country and all the raw materials necessary for even domestically manufactured goods, as a matter of fact, there's a lot of that as well that will increase the prices of even domestically manufactured goods. But outside of that, domestic manufacturers will also increase their prices because now there's market demand for it. Now everyone else's prices are higher. Why should you make less profits? Because once you recognize that under capitalism, there is never, ever going to be a moment where those with the fiduciary responsibility of constantly improving their profit margins for their shareholders, people that are legally bound to constantly improve shareholder value will always increase the profit margins to the best of their ability, always improve shareholder value to the best of their ability. Then you start recognizing that they will never have an incentive to reduce the profits. They will never actually keep prices stable unless they're forced to keep prices stable. And a country like the United States of America has never done that, with the exception of Nixon, I guess. And Trump is certainly not the guy, I think, that will do that. This is why prices are slated to explode. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has said the market is going to boom. And boom it has. And boom it has. Now let's watch Time doing how tariffs work from 2 months ago. Hopefully this will be a quick and short explainer for you.
U.S. manufacturers make cars for $100, and they are selling briskly here at home. But the Chinese enter the market. They set their prices at $75. U.S. cars don't sell as well. The government decides to help the U.S. car makers, and they slap an 100% tariff on Chinese car imports. The companies that do the importing pay the tariff to the government. They typically raise the price of their products to cover it. Now, cars from China cost $150.
Yeah.
Consumers flock back to U.S.-made cars,
And even if China goes, all right, we'll lower the prices of our cars even further to help out the importers, okay? Even if they say, we'll help out the prices, we'll help out on our end, the tariffs are usually so high that Chinese cars, once they do enter the American marketplace, because of the profit incentive from the importers, the middleman in that situation, they will still not be able to compete with American manufacturers. However, the way that this works is once the Chinese cars on the marketplace are $150, these cars don't stay at $100. they go up to $125. Sometimes they also go up to $150. Do you understand? Because the same incentive structure, the same profit motive exists for the domestic manufacturers as well. So they take advantage of the market and they also increase their prices.
All is good again. China may even open plants to build cars in the U.S., adding U.S. jobs to avoid the tax. But China likely retaliates and slaps tariffs on U.S. goods, making them more expensive overseas and hurting U.S. exports in different industries. Increased demand for U.S. cars and a lack of competition from other manufacturers may motivate U.S. car makers to raise their prices too. The market becomes less efficient and innovative.
Yeah, this last part is just, to a certain degree, this last part is obviously, how do I put this? It's pro-capitalist. And capitalists love free trade, and capitalists, of course, hate any kind of trade protectionism. There are obviously short-term negative pressures on the market, for sure, when any kind of trade protectionist policy is implemented. Okay? This is correct. Price increases is what I'm talking about, for sure. Having said that, if America and the American government did have a genuine interest in boosting American manufacturing, then they would have to, one, build the industrial base before they made these initiatives and plan for long-term prosperity in the same exact way that the Chinese government has done for the past couple of decades, and is the reason why the Chinese government has been able to outcompete every other country and their own domestic manufacturers. You can't compete with BYD because BYD is getting funded by the government. That's it. As long as Chinese government subsidies exist, they can behave in a way like Amazon does, with predatory pricing to outcompete everybody else. Because state subsidies with no real interest in improving profit margins, because every company is still ultimately controlled by the state, can be wielded like a weapon to eviscerate the American and European markets. Okay? Wait, you're admitting it? What do you mean? There's no admission here. This is just reality. This is analysis of what reality looks like. It's also something that I want. You're admitting it's unfair trade practices? It's not unfair trade practices, dumb. It's only unfair trade practices because America can't compete. What are you saying? We also subsidize our agricultural output, for example. I think it's significantly less fair when the United States government dominates a country and incentivizes them not to produce their own agricultural yields and instead makes them poorer and poorer as a consequence, and simultaneously offer them our subsidized agricultural output instead. That's unfair. What China is doing is competing in the global market. China understands the game and plays it too well, and you're like, oh, it's unfair. They're dunking on us too much. Subsidize the single industry and keep prices low, bankrupt all other companies in the industry, not unfair. My friend, that's a government. You're just coping because our government won't do that. I'm saying our government should do that. Hello? You're mad that America set the rules of the game and China is dunking on us. It doesn't make any sense. And I'm literally talking about teaching America how to dunk. And you're like, no. Don't teach America how to dunk. Let's just put tariffs. If that is not unfair, then what's wrong with America giving free food and clothing into a third world country, destroying their local industry? Because the over-reliance on free food and clothing for the global South comes from what America did prior to that. Okay? China did not do that to America or Africa. Do you understand what I'm saying? We dominate these countries and then we make them reliant on our free agricultural output that we subsidize on our end. We do it so that our farmers can make a living, We do it so that those countries never develop their own agricultural output. That is infinitely less fair than China being like, all right, you think China isn't doing this on purpose? Wait, what? I don't think you understand, man. I don't think you understand what I'm explaining to you. Okay? I don't think you understand what I'm explaining to you at all. You are not comprehending anything here. China is competing against countries that are more powerful than it, because they are able to use the profit incentive backed capitalist liberal democracies and their lack of interest in dominating private corporations or controlling private corporations against them. America is doing that, on the other hand, to significantly poorer nations that we have kept poor, that we have robbed blind. He's running circles around you intellectually. I know he is. Yeah, if you're the stupidest person on the planet. Why is our government allowing this? Because the American government has always been a proto-capitalist nation and then a hyper-capitalist nation. And everything that the American government has always done has been to protect the profit incentive and protect the bottom line of corporations. That is precisely the reason why the American government has done this in perpetuity.
Stephanie Ramos, you are at the port in Newark, where goods are shipped from all over the world, billions of dollars worth. Good morning, Stephanie.
Good morning, Rebecca. As you know, this port brings in hundreds of billions of dollars worth of goods each year from China, Vietnam, and other countries around the world. But those items are likely about to get more expensive. For years, Vietnam has been the go-to for companies trying to dodge U.S. tariffs on China. But starting April 9th, President Trump is rolling out a 46.
China is extracting value in unequal exchange in Africa, though. China didn't make Africa the ripe exploited ground that it is. Western powers did. China simply, once again, is out competing the Western powers, offering loans without the conditions that the IMF and World Bank have placed upon African nations. You are just mad that you can't compete against China. And it's funny because you're nothing. You're just like a normal guy like me. We have no say in this process, and we don't even reap the rewards of this process. And here we are defending the American and the Western Empire's decisions. Like, what the fuck is this? It's just pure Western cope. And it's funny because that cope that you're demonstrating is old cope. It's cope from 10 years ago. Foreign Policy magazine and The Economist don't even agree with this assessment now, because even they are like, yeah, we have to take a closer look at the ways in which the IMF and World Bank have operated, because Chinese lenders are offering loans and even eviscerating that debt in a moment's notice. And it's significantly better. And they're doing that to enter these marketplaces. And they're doing that so that they can actually develop these marketplaces, so they can actually sell to these marketplaces. China is in the process of developing a secondary market in Africa. That's what they're doing. They're trying to generate new customers. America, on the other hand, and Western powers, on the other hand, have never treated Africa in the same way. And that is precisely the reason why China can get to do that. Oh yeah, China's extracting mineral resources from Africa, which they use to build more value-added products to sell back to them. China will never give up their IP and tech to give African countries technology that would actually allow them to climb the economic ladder. Again, the age-old adage once again comes true in the chat over and over again. Like, this person does not work for the Atlantic Council, and yet here he is repeating the same sentiment, even though he's just like a random dude. What's it to you is the question that I ask, especially as America and the American government right now is destroying your future, destroying your prospect for ever retiring. And you're over here still giving lectures about China. Age-old adage, once again, when China comes here, they build a hospital. When the Westerners come here, they give us a lecture. That's it. That's what you're doing. That's all you got. All you got is this. And it's funny because you're not even a Western diplomat. You're not working for the IMF. You're not working for the Atlantic Council. And here you are repeating shit that you read. It does not make any sense to me whatsoever. I don't understand it. Yeah, I mean, we've already covered this. Whenever China comes, they build a hospital. Whenever America comes, they bomb our hospital. Okay, that's different. That would be the MENA region. China would never be able to take advantage and develop these new relationships with African countries if it wasn't for the West's evisceration of African nations and consistent exploitation, hyper exploitation of African nations. You understand that, right? They look like they're wonderful liberators in comparison to the Western Empire and the forces that have dominated and kept African nations poor. In the words of Parenti, you don't rob a poor man, you rob a rich man. It's not like Africa and African nations are poor across the board. They are actually resource rich. They're rich in labor power. They're rich in resources. It's just that they have been robbed blind and purposely kept underdeveloped by Western forces. They're overexploited. In any case, let's continue.
6% tariff on imports from there, possibly bringing a major price hike for many popular products. So let's say you want to buy a $30 shirt made in Vietnam. If the business passed on the entire cost of the tariff, that $30 shirt just became $43.80. Brands.
I mean, that's insane, dude. That's everything. Because we designed global trade this way. We did this. It's so funny when you got working class chatters in here who are still trying to defend Trump's decisions, and they don't even realize that, like, you are going to be paying for this increased sales taxes. That's what this is. I don't think this is a move that Trump has made in an effort to shred the free market policies that have taken place, the complex global trade. I think it's not trade protectionism to boost domestic manufacturing, but instead to decouple the United States from its over-reliance on China and other countries within the sphere of influence of China that America and the Western nations have relied on for far too long for cheap consumer goods. But because there is no vision there to boost domestic labor and boost domestic manufacturing, that this is just simply a additional sales tax that you're paying for. And you're defending it. You're defending it because of a guy who is from a class that literally did this to you and ruined this country's economy in perpetuity, is telling you, actually, it's good that you're paying the sales tax because somehow, somewhere along the line, it's going to fix itself. It's hilarious. It's ridiculous. It's peasant mindset. My lordship, I will give you more. The rest of the peasants are withholding grain from you, my lordship. I will make up for the demand. Take my wife. Prima nocta, your grace.
Like Nike, Hasbro, even Apple have shifted some of their production to Vietnam to avoid U.S. tariffs on China. But Nike could face a big blow. The company produced 50% of its footwear and 28% of its apparel in Vietnam in its 2024 financial year. And here's another big change. Popular cheap brands like Shein and Temu will face steep tariffs for the first time as the White House ends an exemption preventing tariffs on small dollar shipments from China. So what can you do? Well, first check the labels. See where your favorite products are made and consider buying from elsewhere. And if you're on a budget, consider buying secondhand. It's a really great way to avoid these new tariffs and be more sustainable too. But with the changes coming, this could really reshape everything you wear, from your shoes or even the toys that your kids play with. So get ready for a shift. Michael.
Yeah, you're right.
Get ready for a shift. All right. Breaking news. Trump asked point blank about stock market plunge following tariff announcements. Let's see how he responded.
Much. We're going to see the big golf tournament at Doral. I'm speaking tonight for charity.
This cocksucker is going to a golf tournament. Oh my God. Are you joking? Ain't no way. Are you kidding me? Dude, no. Dude, if you are a Republican and you voted for this man and he just gutted your nest egg for a retirement that you will never have, And then turns around, and he turns around, he's like, I'm going to a golf tournament, baby. Everything is grocery. Everything's computer. And you're like, that's right. That's my heaven sent president right there. He's got the heavens mandate, brother. If you don't understand that he's you and not even doing it in a way where he like shelters you from the impact, he's just you and saying, what are you going to do about it? If you can't comprehend that this man is Tsar Nicholas, exactly. It's giving Marie Antoinette. But instead of let them eat cake, which is, maybe falsely attributed to Marie Antoinette, whatever. I'm not going to get into that. But if you don't understand, he's doing let them eat cake, but instead he's like, I'm just going to golf. F you. If you can't comprehend what's going on here, you are so stupid. Oh my God.
And then we'll be coming back here pretty quickly, but they're having a big event and a lot of charitable causes are involved. So we look forward to that. It's in Miami at Doral.
President Trump, the markets today are way down, the worst day in years because of the tariffs. So how's it going?
I think it's going very well. It was an operation, like when a patient gets operated on, and it's a big thing. I said this would exactly be the way it is. We have $6 or $7 trillion coming into our country, and we've never seen anything like it.
Oh, it's
the
going
markets
well.
are going to boom. The stock is going to boom. The country.
It's gonna boom. It's gonna boom. 5 booms.
It's going to boom, and the rest of the world wants to see, is there any way they can make a deal? They've taken advantage of us for many, many years. For many years, we've been at the wrong side of the ball, and I'll tell you what, I think it's going to be unbelievable. The thing that people have to talk about, we're up almost to $7 trillion of investment coming into our country, and you'll see how it's going to turn out. Our country's going to boom.
Yeah. So the Dow is down 1615, down almost 200 in the last 2 years. I just don't understand why. I was looking forward to hearing from Asmongold today, and it kind of disappoints me that he's not live today to talk about how based this is. You know what I mean? Yeah. Well. Like I really thought he was going to be popping off talking about how based. It's based. Chat. You don't understand. Oh, it's the golden age. Yeah.